Hello. Ism's good, pal.
Ism's
Hello,
good,
pal.
bud. Hey.
Hey, man. How you feeling?
Well, I am the portrait of good health. Clearly,
You sound like you need about, 500 to 1,000 milliliters of Red Bull
well,
injected directly into your
hold
veins.
on a second. I'm on number 2.
Get you a sip, bro. Take a sip. Dude, what were those energy drinks that we used to drink all the time when we were, right before rehearsal or whatever?
Well, we did that because we won that competition and we were like sponsored by them.
Oh, yeah. Who was it, though?
I keep wanting to say Bang, but I know that's wrong.
No, that's new. Was it Monster? No.
No, I think it was something.
I don't know, man. But God, all of a sudden, like all of our kidneys started
Yeah, that was
hurting,
weird.
And, like Boo Boo had that weird like facial twitch thing.
I forgot about
called butthole mouth.
Was that because of the those energy drinks?
The energy drinks?
Oh,
yeah.
weird. Yeah, I do remember the kidney thing. Like if you didn't drink like 10 gallons of water in a day and you drank this thing, it just felt like somebody was just kidney punching.
Kidney failure.
Yeah.
We were having literal kidney failure. I'm glad we don't remember the names, the name of the company, because we probably get sued or something. But we could feel our bodies shutting down. Mm-hmm. But boy, that first like 5 to 10 minutes, we were on fire, man. Running through our veins. It was awesome. Anyways, too bad you don't have one of those.
Well,
right now.
Oddly enough, I am on my second Red Bull of the day because I feel horrible right now.
Look, I need you to get those wings.
I got them.
And I need you to start flapping them.
I think what we really need is our technology to work properly today.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's been a nightmare.
Well, let's try this. Let's try this round 2 and cue the music. Hey, welcome back to your favorite podcast, That Would Be Rad. Podcast that majors in 80s and 90s nostalgia, comic culture, all things paranormal, and minors in retro video games, pre-internet mysteries, and raising our kids to be half as cool as we were back in the 80s. We are your hosts, Woody Brown
and Tyler Bence.
Sounds like you got a little bit of that Red Bull wings on you.
Well, I like to, I think this is a good example or a good, God bless America. It's a good, it's a good, sort of a real time check in on, the episode last week is me saying, yeah, I don't feel too great. And then this week I feel like I'm on death's door.
You sound like you might be 1 foot in the grave for sure.
I feel like it, yeah.
We're going to cross our fingers and...
I see what you did there.
We're going to cross our fingers and rub our rabbit's feet and hope that you start feeling better. Now, when we started talking about this episode, we're like, man, we're already on episode 13? And then we started thinking about 13, right? So it's always kind of weird to me whenever I start thinking about things like, I know some people, their favorite number is actually 13. That's their lucky number. Some people will literally avoid everything they can do to keep from even being associated with the number 13. And so when we started thinking about that, we thought, let's kind of jot down a list of common superstitions and really kind of dive into their origins, because when we started talking about it, coming to find out, I had no idea where some of these came from or why we think of certain things as bad luck and good luck and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The I thought you were still going there for a minute.
Boy, man alive. Dude,
this,
if you need to take a 5-second break,
no.
Go ahead and chug it. Get you another sip.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Dip that straw down deep in there and get it all, man.
This second Red Bull is, it's just now kicking in. No, I totally agree with you. The interesting thing that I kind of found was the connection, from a superstition that I would remember as a kid. And then once you go in and look it up and look into the sort of the history or where it comes from, and it's, slightly different here. And then it's like, oh, well, there's also one over in Japan that's similar. And so I found that really interesting. I like the idea that it's almost they kind of run parallel with folk tales and cautionary tales.
oral traditions.
Oral
and
traditions,
stuff.
right. We had a real tough
Well, it's kind
time
of cool. I
earlier.
mean, yeah. We kind of talked about this before where, obviously I got my degree in biology, but man, the more I think about it and the more like things that I pick up and read, man, I really wish I would have gotten it in anthropology.
Oh,
The
yeah, me
study,
too.
I loved part of the thing that I love the most about us kind of doing this and doing our research. And I can't wait to hear the half that you found and, for you to hear my half. But the fact that, just like you were saying, in some ways we're all so connected from this like central history almost, like in the folklore, and as we get into it, paranormal sightings. I mean, all that stuff connects us. It's pretty neat. But I don't want to take another second. I think we should dive into this list. And yeah, man, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I think it would only be apropos to bring up the first one, which is the concept of beginner's luck. Beginner's luck is typically the idea that new players to either a game or a sport or an activity. The idea is that they're kind of just swinging in and they're just going to blow everybody away. From what I've read, that seems to be a pretty big theme in like casinos and gambling and poker, cards and stuff. But yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know about you, but I used to kind of blame some of my friends, like if I was having a real hard time with
Right.
A video game or something. Well, even sometimes I do this with my wife. Like, I can admit it on here. This is me admitting it. She is way better at video games. Well, some video games than I am. For example, like
I'm
Mario
still blown
games.
away by that.
Did she beat Mario too? I mean, yes, it took her a while, but I don't know, man. She's just really good. And then Super Mario World, man. She's a pro. But anyway,
I'm so envious.
And so like your friend would come over, you're having a hard time. They would just sit down. They've never played it before. And then all of a sudden they're just destroying. And it's like, what is going on? I feel like that used to happen with me in like Mega Man.
Oh my
like
gosh.
It was just so hard. And then I would complain and my buddy would be like, well, let me just give it a try. And then they would just be able to like just slay. And
Well, I can specifically remember the water level on the first Mario just
gosh.
being a nightmare.
worst.
And that would happen all the time. And I like that you brought that up because in researching this, there's I guess sort of a real world application. I don't want to say scientific, but but there's a theory behind it, is that somebody coming in for the first time playing something or sport, game, whatever, they're not bringing in the baggage and the stress and the anxiety as someone who does this all the time. And that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they're kind of like a clean slate,
Yeah,
or
right.
a blank canvas. Yeah, they're not bringing in all their preconceived notions and stuff and limiting beliefs, really, based on their experience and stuff. And it's okay, man. It can
Did you
be
say
scientific.
Did you
Limiting
say- I thought you said
beliefs.
Libany.
No, never heard of it. All right, so that is interesting. And now I'm sure you've heard of this. I'm sure our audience has heard of this, but everyone has probably heard that if you find a penny on the ground, it's good luck if you pick it up, right?
Yep.
There's even like this rhyme that goes, find a penny, pick it up, and all day long you'll have good luck. And it actually has a pretty interesting origin. I mean, many ancient cultures believed that, metals were precious gifts from gods and they would bring you good luck if you found them. I mean, the Egyptians like buried their dead with, or I guess their royalty with gold and stuff for them to take with them into the afterlife as gifts and that kind of thing. Pennies, I don't know that you would really consider them treasure, but, because they're not worth much, but picking them up was also considered good luck because it increased your wealth, even if just by that one penny. What I didn't know about this was that there was something associated with the penny in terms of bad luck. So I didn't know that if you find a penny and it's heads up, then you pick it up, you're fine. That's good luck. Boom. All right. You're 1 cent richer. Okay. If you find a penny and it's tails up, that's when it is bad luck, apparently. I didn't know that. And so essentially the bad luck penny comes from the understanding of the constant battle between good and evil, right? If one thing is good, then the other must be bad. And so if one side of a penny brings good luck, the other side must bring bad luck. And so that's kind of where that comes from. Apparently, too, if you end up picking up a penny and you're like, oh my gosh, I picked it up and it's tails up, you can kind of cancel out the bad luck by
Oh,
putting
right.
it back down on the ground for the next person and leaving it heads up. So, I don't know.
Oh,
Pretty interesting there.
I noticed that too, that there's almost like counteractive measures, you know. A lot of these superstitions that are bad luck or representative of bad omens or something like that. You can kind of do certain things to kind of dispel those bad omens or whatever. So my next one is never walk under a ladder. And this is one that we spoke about this a little earlier. Speaking of superstitions, we have had
Oh my
terrible.
gosh, man. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I just thought of it too. We've had this is the second time that we're recording this. But anyway, yeah, I was told from a little kid on to never walk under a ladder. And apparently the origin of that is, and again, I don't know that I totally believe this, but it's from like an early Christian belief that the ladder having three sort of points, you have the top one, bottom two, spread out to two. So it represents the Holy Trinity, which I guess technically is a triquetra. By walking under the ladder, you're breaking the Holy Trinity, and it's blasphemous. But honestly, this one it just feels a little bit of a reach. Another common theme that I think you guys will pick up throughout this is, I think a lot of these are more sort of cautionary tales. I mean, I can put myself, I have two little girls, and Woody has two kids, and I can imagine myself, 1,000 years ago, telling my kid, "Oh, well, it's bad luck. Quit running around the house and quit running under those ladders." And because a kid runs, they trip, knocks the carpenter off, and you get a big mess. But to me, the whole origin of that one is a little
shaky. I mean, for me, it's like I also don't want it to be some crummy ladder that just falls on my head somehow.
Right.
Or, if someone sort of, leaned it up against a building or wall or house or whatever it is, poorly, then I just don't want that thing, coming down on my head.
Yeah. Hey, hold on just a second. Let me shut my door.
While we wait for Tyler to shut his door, I think now would be a good time for us to take a quick break. And when Tyler gets back from doing whatever it is he's doing, we'll jump right back into it.
After these messages, we'll be right back. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let me ask you a quick question. If there's a ladder leaned up against something, are you walking under that pup?
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is no, right? I mean, some of these things, for me, it's like...
and there's no rhyme or reason, but...
No. I mean, I think, you texted me this yesterday, and I immediately showed it to Ann. We both started laughing because we say this to people sometimes, and it's like... There's that quote from The Office when Michael Scott says,
"I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious."
Yeah.
And really, exactly. I mean, that's kind of the best way to explain it. I'm not superstitious. I'm just kind of just like a little bit like, I'm not going to walk underneath a ladder just in case.
Right. Yeah, me neither.
That kind of brings me to the next one, which is black cats crossing your path. Now, What's funny about this one is, no joke, whenever I was a kid, and really up until, I don't know, man, early 20s, I remember there used to be a black cat that I'd see run across the road kind of close to our practice space, and I would just be like, oh, man. But then I kept on seeing that hawk, so I thought that was good luck.
Yeah.
And, whatever. But
I was thinking about that earlier, too.
Yeah, man, I see hawks like a lot. I don't know if I have some sort of like Native American sort of spirit animal connection to them, but... Anyhow, so historically, cats in general, but especially black cats, have played all sorts of mythological roles. In Egypt, for example, black cats were worshipped. The ancient Egyptian god of cats called Bastet was often portrayed as a woman with the head of a black cat.
And were there other deities that were also cats? This was just specifically a black cat?
Yeah, that one was specifically a black cat.
Oh, cool.
But in Celtic mythology, however, there's a legend that existed about a creature called the cat Sith. And the cat Sith was said to resemble a large black cat with a white spot on its chest. And legend has it that it could steal a person's soul before the gods could claim it by passing over a corpse before the burial. So because of that, they would organize these like community watches to keep the mythical creature away from the corpses and burial areas and stuff. So they would like chase them off if they saw a black cat coming. And then in the Middle Ages in Europe, black cats were, often associated with witches and stuff. And so this belief, I think, is what spread to the U.S. when the first settlers came to the United States and was part of,
Sort of
things
the Protestant.
and things that they used in like the Salem witch trials and, that kind of thing.
I think
But
so too.
the good thing is there are still some places in the world that exist where a black cat is considered good luck. For example, in Scotland, a strange black cat arriving at your home is believed to bring prosperity. In the rest of Britain, a black cat crossing your path is also considered good luck, and the same goes for Japan. So,
Wow, that's interesting too, because in the realm of cryptids, all in the UK, there's a lot of like black panther sightings over there. So that's an interesting sort of aside to that one, and that actually ties into my next one. And I kind of went down a rabbit trail on this one. Well, I did not mean to do that, but the next one is a rabbit's foot. So talismans and amulets have been ritual items used for, years and years, and they're always used to fend off evil. Even, you think of vampires, crosses, garlic. But they believe that the idea of the lucky rabbit's foot harkens back to also Celtic tribes in Britain, the Druids, or the hoodoo traditions, which is like the early African-American southern folk magic. Also Europe, China, North and South America. And some people also think that it could tie into a European good luck charm called the Hand of Glory, which I'd never heard of this, but this is pretty fascinating. Do you know what that is? Have you ever heard of that?
no, I've never heard of that.
It is, once a man has been hung, they basically cut off his hand and you pickle it and you keep it in a jar, and that's supposed to give you good luck.
What?
Yeah, it's weird. So in the hoodoo culture, the lucky rabbit's foot, it has to be the left hind foot, and it has to either be caught or shot in a cemetery. Some even say that it must be taken on the full or the new moon or Friday the 13th, actually, oddly enough. Some say that it has to be shot by a silver bullet, or that it has to be cut off while the rabbit is still alive. So it's interesting because, we think of, it's just like a lucky rabbit's foot. And, you see them.
Do you remember like the ones that you'd get when you were a kid that are like neon purple?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and there's a lot of like fake ones now. But I remember even when we were on the road, when we would tour a lot, down south, we would come across those like old truck stops, and you would still find them. But this is the interesting thing that I found in this. So a rabbit is kind of known by witches to be an animal that they can shapeshift into. And again, it's on full and new moons. The luck or good omens are basically coming from a witch when you're cutting the foot off. So, and I'd never thought about this, but basically the idea of a lucky rabbit's foot is did a witch turn into this rabbit, and then that's how you take the rabbit, and you're actually gaining
Capturing the magic or whatever.
The magic, yeah, right. Which is really interesting. I've never thought about that. But there's several of those kind of things, especially in like the hoodoo tradition. According to the 20th century folklorist Newbell Niles Huckett, the grave of the more like how do I say this? The more wicked the person is, the more effective the charm. So Puckett observed that during the 1884 election campaign of Grover Cleveland, he was said to have been given a rabbit's foot that had been killed on the grave of American outlaw Jesse James, and therefore he won the election. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Yeah.
That is crazy, man.
But again, it's interesting because there's all different kind of countries have different sort of variations on that. I don't know that we would really be able to track down
The first origin.
Yeah, the real origins of any of these things, just because they're lost to history, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, bad luck comes in threes. The way I hear that most often is kind of like, when we hear like deaths come in threes, right?
I've heard
when
that
like
too.
a celebrity passes away. I look at this and I'm like, wait a second, what about third time's a charm?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like surrounding this number, like earlier you mentioned, the ladder, and it propped up against a building and it forms the triangle shape. And even in researching this part of the kind of origin too, it talks a little bit about the mathematical significance of three and how, if you really think about it, a triangle is a pretty dang sturdy shape
Yeah,
too. I mean, it's
right.
very sturdy. It's got a very strong base and everything.
Strong base.
Strong, large family breeding. Okay. And oh man, totally derailed me.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Strong base.
Oh, so
Triangle.
anyways, the triangle's got a strong base. I mean, that's why like you think about things like a tripod or a teepee. These kind of things
A
are
ladder.
a ladder leaning against a building with a with a rabbit's foot hanging on it. Why? How did it become bad luck? Well, one of the kind of things that I found was an expression that I hadn't heard, but I asked my parents and they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard of that." So it may be like one of those things that's slightly past our generation, but you may have heard this before. But have you ever heard of 3 on a match?
I don't think so.
Okay.
What is
I
that?
had never heard of it either. Here's where it comes from. The superstition goes that if 3 soldiers lit their cigarettes, if 3 soldiers lit their cigarettes from the same match, then one of the 3 would be killed, or the man who was the 3rd on the match would be shot. So since then, it's been considered bad luck. Now that superstition has origins back into like around World War I, trench warfare. And so sort of some of the things that I read to, not discount it, but to kind of give it a little bit more context was that, look, I mean, if it took you 3 times to, either strike a match or, have a match lit that long,
You deserve to die.
Well, no, when you're trying to hide in this trench from the enemy, hey, there's a higher probability that you are going to be the one that gets shot, right? Because they have the sniper would have a longer time to kind of observe that. So that's kind of what I found on like where the bad luck in 3s. And then, there was a longer article about how, there are a lot of things in nature in terms of patterns that we can kind of observe, and even psychologically, how we as humans, the way our brains work, a lot of times kind of turn things into a pattern of 3s. And in fact, like in marketing, in like even sayings and stuff like that, a lot of times, or slogans, a lot of times they'll be presented to us like a consumer or like a general public.
Right.
If it's being presented by like a president or something, they'll do it in like 3s. Same things with like story structure and movie structure and all this kind of stuff. All kind of revolves around that pattern. So
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Really looking at these things, just the concept of a superstition. I mean, it's kind of a ritual within its own right, especially if you're doing sort of the counteracting thing. Like I forgot to mention, but earlier, whenever you're driving and you see a black cat, like if it crosses, I was always taught you're supposed to do like an X on your windshield.
yeah.
So it really does kind of play into the whole idea that you're, whether you know it or not.
Counteracting, yeah.
Yeah, you're doing some sort of like some form of like a ritual, which is interesting. Speaking of rituals, my next one is don't break the mirror. And this is one that I've known since a kid. You break a mirror, 7 years bad luck.
Right.
I guess that I'd always thought that it was, again, sort of a cautionary tale type thing where, you shouldn't be messing around and, breaking stuff. But apparently it comes from the belief that mirrors actually, not only do they reflect your appearance, but they hold bits of your soul.
Yikes.
Which is bizarre, yeah. So if you're looking in a mirror every morning, little bits of your soul is still being kept in that mirror even after you leave. This belief led to people of the Old South, not South America, but the American South. They would actually cover their mirrors in a house when someone had died because they were afraid that back then they wouldn't go to like the funeral home or the a place that kept the body. They would keep the body in the house.
Sanitary.
They would have, it's pretty terrifying. But they would have, a wake or like a celebration or something like that. So, but they would cover these mirrors so that that spirit, if it was lingering around the house still, wouldn't be caught in the mirror, which is pretty weird. With this one, again, there's another sort of countermeasure that you can do. It says that you basically could take a piece of the broken mirror and you touch it to a tombstone or you could take all of the shattered pieces of glass and grind it into a dust or powder, which
Wow.
seems like a lot of work.
It does seem like a lot of work, but even still, I haven't broken a mirror.
Yeah, same here.
Wow. Now here's one too that this is the trust tree, right? I mean, this is the circle of protect. What do we call it?
I mean, we could do D&D, Circle of Protection.
Okay, cool. Let's have a circle of protection here. Like, I'll admit, I still kind of do this one, or like the anti-hex or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, spilling the salt. Everyone hopefully has heard of that being, bad luck. You knock the salt over, and what are you supposed to do? Some people throw some over their left shoulder, something like that. So it's believed to have originated with the overturned salt cellar in front of Judas Iscariot at the Last Supper.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah. According to an old Norwegian superstition, a person will shed as many tears as will be necessary to dissolve the salt spilled. So in other words, you spill a bunch of salt, just imagine how many tears it would take to, kind of equal that amount of sodium chloride, which is table salt. There's a little science lesson for you. An old English belief,
chloride.
an old English belief has it that every grain of salt spilled represents, again, future tears. The Germans believe that whoever spills salt arouses, old like demons and the devil and a peace disturber, basically, which is, boy, that's taking it to the next level,
It really is.
The French throw a little spilled salt behind them in order to hit the devil in the eye, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, in the U.S., some people not only toss a pinch of salt over the left shoulder, but I found this to be interesting. I don't take it to this level, but they also crawl under the table and come out the opposite side.
What?
Have you ever seen anybody do? I've never seen anybody do that. Imagine being on like a first date. And so like I would actually, first, imagine just being on a first date and, salt gets knocked over. You're like 16 or 17 or something. And somebody's just like, whoop. And they just like crawl under the table and end up on the other side. You're like, what's happening? No, but for me, like I was kind of like, I'm not joking. Like literally last night, my son knocks over the salt. I'm like, yep, throw a little pinch behind me. I still do that. It's it.
Go ahead.
I'm sure whatever you had to say was more important. So why don't you go ahead?
I thought you were done. No.
But I wasn't done. Go ahead.
Go ahead, pal.
What I was just going to say, maybe I was done. Turns out I was done.
No, I immediately think of that scene in Dumb and Dumber, when he throws the entire...
Oh, yeah, the whole salt shaker behind him. Kick his ass, sea bass.
Now, did you find the oldest sort of account of that? Like, I wonder where that...
Yeah, I tried to, and really, like, the one about the overturned salt cellar in front of Judas was basically the oldest I could find.
Yeah,
you got anything BC, bro?
There is a lot of sort of salt references in the Bible, like,
and just old ancient, any old ancient, like, text and story and stuff. The salt was, I joke with my kids about this sometimes when we're talking about, like, cinnamon. It's like, hey, man, wars were fought.
Oh, yeah.
Because of seasoning.
Over tea. Or
yeah.
tea.
But, it's like, imagine when they discovered, man, you add this to your food, and it's like a party in your mouth. So...
Frank Herbert wrote an entire novel about it.
What old Frank say?
Well, he wrote the book Dune, which is
true.
About that salt.
Spice, but go ahead.
Was it Spice? I just gave myself away. I've actually never finished that book.
Yeah, no, but it makes it hilarious that you said about that salt.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a good one. The next one I have is, and again, you said that the earliest sort of account that from your last one with the salt originated from biblical accounts.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really thought was interesting too, is, we grew up in the Bible Belt. Well, I did when I was a kid, but, grew up in the Bible Belt, these small town, tiny little churches when I was growing up. And, the idea that, rituals or magic or anything like that was just such a
Instantly
contrast.
labeled demonic, right?
Yeah, it was just not. It just did not go along the lines of Christianity or church, and so I find it really interesting that almost every single one of these have some kind of link, back to not necessarily the Bible, but it definitely plays a role in all of these. So the next one that I have is 666. This originates from the book of Revelation from the Bible, and it is known as the number of the beast. It's interpreted as the mark of Satan, and it's a prophecy of the end times. And again, growing up in a small church as a kid, I mean, this was just constant. It was like, they're coming out with credit cards, mark of the beast. They're coming out with
Elvis Presley.
Yeah, cell phones, mark of the beast. I mean, don't get me started because we're not necessarily a conspiracy podcast, but there is some stuff with this new Bill Gates vaccine. Just do your research. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, I do think there is something to 666, just growing up in a certain way. I definitely think there's something to it. But there's an anthropologist named Philip Stevens from the University of New York at Buffalo, that he's kind of arrived at the belief that in Revelation it was written with the intent of being read by persecuted Christians, because there was a lot of that going on in that time. And so there was a lot of things that were written that were, specifically written for code. And the 3 6s written in a row is similar to the numeric equivalent of the Hebrew letters for the first century Roman Emperor Nero. So that's really pretty interesting.
That is interesting, especially, Nero, I'll have to brush up on some Roman history, but Nero was kind of an evil son of a gun.
Oh, yeah, big time.
That's actually kind of a good transition into mine. I didn't know that this one had its origins kind of in a similar way to ancient Rome. So the next one is, we've all heard too, especially as this is November, we're getting closer to Thanksgiving, making a wish with a wishbone.
Yep.
I had no idea about this. Ancient Romans believed that chicken bones held the power of good fortune. And when 2 people pulled apart a wishbone, the person left with the larger piece got the good luck or a wish granted. But it goes back even further than that. So,
well, real quick, is there a negative to the person that got the...
I think that the other person just doesn't...
died.
No. No, that they, later on, it kind of gets a little bit cloudy and murky there in terms of the belief, because later on it kind of says, the fact that it was a wishbone, means that both people get the good luck. Some people believe that, like, the person with the larger one is the one that gets to make the wish, and the other one just doesn't get to make a wish. It's not bad luck. But
I think that's kind of how I've always sort of
me too.
heard it. Yeah.
So there are these people called the Etruscans, or Etruscans, and they were an Italian civilization contemporary to the Romans that would and were eventually absorbed by the Roman Empire. But they're really thought to be the ones that sort of started this tradition. They believed in something called, there's no way I'm going to pronounce that correctly the first time.
Give it to me, champ.
Electriomancy. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but essentially it's rooster divination, a form of prophecy which involved using the movements of a rooster to determine future events. Now, I'm going to break in real quick here. I have chickens. I don't have any roosters because I don't want my neighbors, getting mad at me.
They're so annoying.
They're annoying and they're mean. And, I wanted chickens, hens are super sweet. And we get free range eggs from them, and they're nice with our kids and all that. But there's no way in God's green earth that I would base any thought to their behavior, because it's not random, but it really is just kind of like, I have no idea what they're doing. So anyway, they would base this, this prophecy or whatever from the roosters movements. And this is kind of how it went. Using their alphabet, they would draw the alphabet on the ground, and then bits of food would be scattered in each letter's sort of vector, okay? Not too unlike, the scene in Stranger Things when Will's mom has the letters and the lights on the wall. Really cool scene. But
which is basically like a Ouija board.
Yeah, that kind of concept exactly, except for you using a freaking wild rooster to, tell your fortune. And so basically they put the rooster down. They would take note of the bird's movements and the letters and kind of use those notes to figure out quandaries of the day or figure out what was ahead for society. I mean, no joke, it really is kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Hey, are we going to get more grain this year? Roll the dice. Instead, they've got a rooster pecking the answer out. Weird. So when the chicken oracle would die, the wishbone would be dried out and preserved as it was viewed as being the center of the bird's like predictive prowess.
Oh, okay.
The reason why this bone in particular was chosen over like, thicker bones that has like marrow and all that stuff, relatively unclear. No scholars really know the definitive answer there. But again, a lot like kind of like all of these conquering empires would do, as they would come in, they would sort of absorb some of a smart empire anyway, would come in, absorb some of the belief systems and cultures of whoever they're conquering. And then those traditions would kind of like sort of live on in a way.
Right. Which is, a lot of how a lot of the Christian traditions were taken from sort of pagan.
A lot of like the holiday traditions.
The holidays, Christmas and the day it being.
Yeah, and I mean, not to get too far into history, but I mean, I don't know how much you know about the Emperor Constantine and stuff, but
I know everything.
Some people say that like even his adoption of the cross on his soldiers' shields was a pretty brilliant attempt, but an attempt to kind of win over the folks in the area who were Christian. Anyways, and that's actually a really cool legend.
Well, yeah, I think that just that concept in general is super interesting. Like you said, you would have these invaders, they come in, they pretty much take an entire encampment or village or town or city hostage kind of, and then they kind of, integrate into one big society. And then, so you have this, this entire faction of people who, believe in this. Well, let's, these people are pagans and we don't like them. So let's take that day that they worship, Samhain or Saturnalia during the Christmas season. Let's take all those days and then just, kind of blend the two and, everybody's kind of happy. It's just this sort of compromise sort of deal.
Well, and even too, I mean, you got to think there's probably some Roman that met some beautiful pagan girl and vice versa. And, they start having kids and, some of those beliefs. It's just like the melting and the blending of cultures and stuff is pretty cool. But essentially, once the Romans kind of adopted the tradition, essentially that's when it came, that's when it kind of turned into them sort of breaking it and figuring out who had the larger piece, and they would be the ones that ended up having their wishes granted.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of those sort of in the world of like the esoteric or the occult. There's a lot of those sort of divination practices. Like I think it originates from like Asian cultures, but like divining through like tea leaves. Or throwing bones or throwing dice, or it's kind of leaving it up to quote unquote chance, but looking into it a little deeper. I think that's cool. My next one is actually the next two are pretty short, so I'm just going to go into the next two. Is knock on wood. Now it's funny. It kind of went from where people would knock on wood. It originated as kind of a way of warning or dispelling bad luck after tempting fate, and now it's kind of become like almost like a verbal talisman in the sense of, you hear people say, "Oh, knock on wood," but a lot of people don't even actually do it anymore. They just say it, which is kind of an interesting change of that sort of, that concept. The idea behind it was that they would knock on wood because they believed that within wood or in representative of nature, there were good spirits. And I think that can, when I read that, I think that can kind of lean into the fae and the fairy, the wood people, that kind of whole deal. But then also, which probably was later adopted, knocking on wood, which, the Christian cross was originally wood. And then that kind of leads into the next one, which is, cross your fingers. This one also dates back to early Christianity. Basically, when you had someone who was praying or somebody was in need of something, and a friend was kind of offering their support they would walk over and put their index finger to cross your index finger. So it was less about you actually crossing your own fingers. That was kind of, distilled later on, I think. But originally it was between two people. I never knew this, but, the symbolism of two fingers crossing was because it was the shape of the cross. So I thought that was really interesting.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely one of the folks that like knocks on wood. You've seen like the old older sort of Jewish ladies like spitting 3 times or whatever. And
Whoa,
Greek,
what is
Greek
this?
folks do this too. Oh, you've never heard of that? Like
No.
Anne does it actually, believe it or not. But yeah, you say something and you're like, I don't know if it's like some sort of you're warding off evil spirits or bad luck or whatever. But
Weird, I've never heard
I
of
still
that.
knock on wood, and I don't really. I guess if when I'm watching the Braves or something, I guess I'm crossing my fingers every now and then. But yeah, so the last one for me, I also found to be interesting because again, it's something that I just don't do because for some reason, whenever you're a kid, somebody told you, hey, don't do that. It's bad luck, and you believe it. You
Right.
believe it to really be bad luck. This is like something that would really change your life for the worse if you did this, and that is opening an umbrella indoors.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I found this interesting. So there are some historians that kind of tentatively trace this belief back to ancient Egyptian times, the superstitions surrounding the pharaoh's sunshades, but they were actually a little bit different apparently and unrelated to, obviously the modern day umbrella. But most historians kind of think that the warning against opening them inside originated a lot more recently in Victorian England. There's this book called Extraordinary Origins of Everyday Things, which we're going to have to get a copy
Yeah,
of.
that sounds great.
And the scientist and author is a guy named Charles Panity. And he wrote that in 18th century London, when metal-spoked waterproof umbrellas began to become a common rainy day sight, their stiff, clumsy spring mechanism made them hazardous, basically, to open indoors. A rigidly spoked umbrella opening suddenly in a small room could seriously injure an adult or a child or even shatter, something fragile and could provoke, an unpleasant words or, a minor kind of fight amongst themselves or something like that. So that's kind of where a lot of folks kind of lean towards that it's a lot more kind of recent and that there's nothing really attributed to it. And, I kind of found that to be a little bit interesting too, that in all of these so far, besides I think the last one that you're going to go over, and I don't know, I can't wait to hear about it, but with all of the ones that we've talked about, there's not like a single like event, right?
Right.
And we're not talking, it's not like, oh, on this, because of this happened. And so from now on, everyone, we have to do this. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yep.
So I found that to kind of be interesting.
Yeah, it's all that oral tradition. It's like a big epic game of telephone.
Yeah. And think about how long it's lasted and
I know.
and lived,
I know.
And so even some of that kind of makes you wonder like, oh gosh, well, I definitely don't want to pick up a penny if it's tails up, and I mean, I don't know. Some people might think all this stuff is kind of silly, but, just imagine this being around, in the last, just thousands and thousands of years. It survived all this time as a tradition.
Yeah, and I wonder if, you think of like the penny on heads when, you wonder is this even older? Was this around with coins from like the Shogunate Empire or ancient Rome, or is the whole penny thing, is that just sort of a confluence or a more modernized version of that? And is it even older, It's really cool. Okay, so for my last one, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What do you think this means? Frigatriskaidekaphobia. And boy, I'm messing that up, I know.
Frigatrix. I don't know, man. Wait, hold on. It's a fear
Here we go. Yes. Here
of
we
something.
go. It is a fear of the day, Friday the 13th. Actually, the odd thing about this is there really wasn't sort of hard evidence on this one that I was really expecting.
Yeah, all these, right?
Yeah, I've always had kind of a soft spot for Friday the 13th, and I just knew like, oh, well, this has to be, is this when the I don't know, some catastrophe, happened in history. But basically, they believe that it dates back to the late 1800s. Friday has long been an unlucky day. Again, linking back to early Christianity. Jesus apparently supposedly died on a Friday. And there were several other things that happened also biblically that fell on Fridays. Now, I don't know how solid all that is, but, there it is. And then the number 13 has just been a long time unlucky number. One thing I did find that was interesting is as of 2018, 17 million people had a phobia for Friday the 13th, which is really interesting.
I always thought, like you said, and that's kind of what I was alluding to a minute ago. Like I thought, well, maybe this is when Sunday Bloody Sunday happened.
Right, exactly.
Because, like when we were kids, do you remember this where like you just don't wear red on Friday the 13th? Did you ever have that?
No, I've never heard of that.
Oh, man, dude.
No.
Maybe it was just some kid messing with me. But I remember one time I wore like a red shirt or something, and they're like, dude, don't you know what day it is? I'm like, yeah, man, it's Friday. It's Friday, man. What do you mean? And they're like, dude, it's Friday the 13th. You don't wear red on Friday. I'm like, oh, my God. So like the rest of the day, I'm just like scrambling to figure something out. And,
shirtless the whole day.
Just shirtless, man. Just chubby kid just walking around class. So, I kind of looked into it a little bit. It's funny, like I said at the top of the show, so many people will think 13 is actually a lucky number for them. I mean, for like Italians, for example, 13 is a lucky number, 17 is an unlucky number.
Ooh, weird.
So in short, no, I didn't find anything that was definitive enough for me to kind of say, oh, okay, cool. I mean, there was something about somebody like the King of France or something arresting Knights of Templar or something, but to me, that's not a...
Yeah, it feels like
good reason.
Again, it just seems like
I thought there was going to be some weird catastrophe. I mean, whatever day freaking COVID came around.
Right, exactly.
Then okay, let's make that a national freaking bad luck day.
Well, even the the number 13. I mean, I in researching this, I kind of found a lot of people giving examples of things that they would do to, some hotels and motels, early ones they would skip the floor 13, or they would, the elevator wouldn't be able to stop on the 13th floor. But I couldn't really find anything. So if any of you listeners out there, if you guys know anything, beyond the reach of Uncle Google, let us know, because I was a little disappointed in this one.
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of talk a little bit about my own sort of superstitious history, my little stitious history.
Yeah.
Little things like I would kind of create things in my mind that would make certain things lucky. So my favorite number was 4. So that was always quote unquote my lucky number, right? But
which
sometimes,
go ahead and tell about the band.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, man, gosh, dude, I didn't even think about that in terms of like good luck sort of rituals and stuff. I mean, if you really think about it, there's a lot of things we did as a band that kind of, well, I say as a band, that we probably forced on the other band members.
Definitely.
But like one of the things that we would do every single night before we would go on stage is mark with a magic or a Sharpie on like our left wrist, under, back of the wrist. Each of us would, in different patterns, like I would mark 4 dots onto their hand or their wrists.
Yep.
And each of us had like our own little like pattern, for me.
Mine was like horizontally all across.
Yeah. And for me, like I would actually write my version of the number 4. So that's something that we did every single night. In our tour van, we had a necklace with a couple different saints, but one of them was like St. Christopher, and then
Mother Mary was up there.
Mother Mary, and then of course, like I had a Mary and a St. Jude around my neck that I wore every day, and also a 4-leaf clover that's, I don't know, man, it's in some sort of
I know exactly.
epoxy or whatever.
Didn't I give that to you?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
And you know what's weird, man? So here's another crazy thing about luck and stuff. We didn't even go into 4-leaf clovers and all that stuff. Maybe we will closer to St. Patrick's Day in April. But, I had this thing, and this is no joke. I used to be able to do it all the time, where I'd be, sitting in a field or something, like, especially here in Georgia, clover, essentially it's just a weed. So it'll just kind of grow in a field of grass or whatever. And I'd be sitting there and somebody'd be like, man, I bet you couldn't find a 4-leaf clover. And I would still be looking at him. Dude, this is not an over-exaggeration. I would look at him and be like, oh yeah? I would reach down, pluck, and I would bring it back up, 4-leaf clover.
Dude, I have that exact same ability.
But check this out. It's kind of disappeared. I haven't been able to do that in a long time. But I think it got, now we're starting to get into some people, we might be losing folks here. If you leave now, thanks for listening. If you're still with us, thanks for listening. Be seated. But I think the ability got passed on to my son because like this summer, we were just like, going on a family walk or something. And I'd be like, oh, there's like a patch of clover or something. And I explained to him that, I used to be able to just reach down and pick out a 4-leaf clover and no problem, And he's like, I bet I can do it. He walks over there, man, and I'm not joking. Boop, first one, bam, 4-leaf clover. He also found like a 5-leaf clover.
Yep.
So it's just wild.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I started thinking, in doing the research, it's the same as like folk tales and even myth and even with cryptids, I like the idea that it could kind of fall into two categories. So, did something happen thousands of years ago and this one guy believed that, okay, well, I did this, and it came with, it was basically a ritual and it created these results. And so he told a friend and they told a friend, and then it became just a part of this giant, long lineage of oral tradition. Or is it something called an egregore or a thought form, or some people call it a tulpa. And we'll do a whole episode of tulpas because it's pretty fascinating. But it's the idea basically that so many people and so much belief into one thing actually kind of starts giving it power, making it basically true, really.
Yeah, bringing it into existence.
Right, exactly.
Kind of like that old like speaking. I mean, dude, it's so crazy that you say that kind of stuff. I've never thought of that, but I mean, think about it even in terms of like, there's a lot of business gurus and stuff that are like, the words that you say out loud. I mean, it's psychologically proven that there's a lot of power in words, even in just like positive self-talk and that kind of thing. The things that you say out loud. So it's like, it kind of brings it all back around to like, man, is there some truth to some of these old traditions and, I mean, almost rituals, really?
Yeah.
Especially in terms of like doing the anti-bad luck thing or whatever, kind of canceling it out. Maybe there's just some truth to this stuff,
Yeah. Or, the thing that I think is even cooler is that maybe it originated as just a silly joke, but then again, it became its own egregore or tulpa almost, and it became a real thing.
Reminds me of American Gods.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Now I never saw the show.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's really good. Yeah,
man. I feel like I tried to watch it and I was like,
no, man, dude.
It's just compared to the book, man. I mean,
well, the book is fantastic, but I'll give it to them. They did a killer job on the show. It's great. Yeah.
But it's on Showtime or something, right?
No, it's on Stars. Which
okay, cool.
I've
got that
show that we tried to watch yesterday is on Stars. Even what you're saying is even biblical. The power of life and death is in your tongue, and so
be careful with your sharp tongue, folks. Be careful whenever you're spitting all that hate towards each other, man.
That's right.
We got a lot of power. Let's use it for good. You know what I mean?
Well, let me get into
it's 3:37. I was supposed to cut it off at 3. What are you getting into?
Well, I've just got a few. I got a couple that I found that were international that I wanted to run by you, and then I had a few that I grew up as a kid experiencing it, and I just wanted to throw them out to see if you recognized any of them.
Go for it.
So I ran across this one, which originates from Mexico, which is really interesting. Again, it goes back to the mirror thing. It says, "Do not face two mirrors like towards each other, or it'll open a doorway to the devil." So
I've never heard of that, but that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, that sounds real terrifying.
God, I used to do that when I was a kid, though. Like that weird like mirror effect.
Yeah, the infinity mirror
thing. I have opened plenty of doors for the devil.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
If you cheer, this is from Germany, if you cheers, clink the glass. If you cheers with water, you're actually cursing death on the other person.
Man, I
Which
love
is-
it. And I'll tell you, that just means, hey, get you a pint of, some frothy brewski. And I mean, hey, I'm just doing what the Germans think,
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
This is one from Turkey, which I feel like I've heard a variation of this, but if your right hand itches, it means money is coming to you. And if your left hand itches, it means that you're losing money, which is pretty interesting.
That is interesting. My
so
right
these
hand
are-
was literally itching just a few minutes ago, not joking.
So these are some of the ones that I heard as a kid, which in going, it's funny. Once we decided that we were going to do this episode, it was like the more I thought about it, they just kept popping into my head like, oh yeah, we had this thing. And there's a lot of really bizarre ones, but have you ever heard if you stare into, you're sitting around a campfire and if you stare into the fire too long, you'll pee in the bed?
No.
My whole family would say that, and I don't know where it comes from. but
Well, apparently you wet the bed quite often, and they had to make up something so you wouldn't.
maybe that was it. I don't
That is
remember wetting the bed
hilarious.
often, but maybe that was it. If any of you out there recognize any of these, also shoot us a
God,
message.
that's amazing.
If it's raining while it's sunny, it means the devil is beating his wife.
I've heard
and
that
you
one.
should be cautious of bad luck coming your way. Red skies at morning, sailors fair warning. Red skies at night, sailors delight.
Now I
Which is
remember, I think I looked those up, and there is some sort of like scientific weather
There is, yeah.
pattern, something that kind of makes those things true. Which
Yeah.
is kind of cool.
Yeah, I remember my mom every morning that she would take me to school. She would always say that because, depending on whatever the sky was doing. You and I are both big fans. We have songs and albums based on blackberry winters and Indian summers. Owls are harbingers of dread or bad luck. Kind of almost feels like a cautionary tale, but if you leave the house with your hair wet, you'll catch pneumonia. I think that's a really common, like, Southern,
Yeah, and like my
grandmother.
grandmothers or
Yeah.
like moms would say,
Right.
like, I think my mom still says that about like, Jane or whatever. Like, you got to make, don't let them get outside with their hair wet. And,
Yeah. Well, it's funny though, because I started thinking, and the idea that of some of these things, originating as being cautionary tales, was this created because typically you had a long work day, so you would take your shower or your bath at night. So obviously, if your hair was wet, that would mean that you were going outside at dark. And, back in the old days, I mean, it was more dangerous at dark. There were animals out there that could eat you. So was that almost a kind of like a cautionary tale for kids, don't go out after dark kind of thing.
Yeah,
It just made
or maybe a
sense to me.
cautionary. I mean, I'm hoping that this doesn't sound like, maybe it was some sort of cautionary tales to young girls too. And it's like, don't go out because, especially back then when there were no like hair dryers and stuff, to just, stay in instead of going out late at night.
Oh, yeah.
Because it took so long for their hair to dry kind of thing.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know.
Hold your breath while crossing a bridge. Did you ever do that?
Well, no, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also knew a girl that was like terrified of bridges. And so every single time that she drove over one, she would roll the windows down. Her
I
thought
knew a girl
being-
that would do the same thing.
Yeah, man. Her thought being that like if for some reason the bridge failed and the car dropped into the water, then at least she could escape through the window rather than trying to break the window open. She knew
Yeah.
physics.
I mean, it makes sense.
pretty well. Yeah.
Last few, when you sneeze, you say God bless you, because I guess the concept is like when you sneeze, your soul temporarily comes out of your body or something.
Yeah, I researched that one like a long time ago.
What is
I
the
mean, I've
exact
heard
deal with that?
all kinds of stuff, man. And like I've heard that, your heart momentarily stops. Like it kind of like causes your heartbeat to like stop or whatever. And so like people say God bless you so that it'll start back up again. I haven't researched into the validity of that. I want to say the validity of that. But anyway, like I don't know, man. I didn't take the time to look that up. Essentially, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, but yeah, me too. Yeah, pick up a penny on heads, and then
Boy, whatever you do,
what?
don't repeat one that we've already said.
No, I know that was just on the list. And then don't step on the cracks or you'll break your mother's back, which is I don't know. That may fall more into just kids being kids.
Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
think that's at the end of the day kind of what all this bred. I mean,
It is.
there are like little things that we do during our daily lives that we do because of some old ritual that, I mean, it almost, if you really break it down, your everyday behavior, even, all of it is little mini rituals.
Yep, that's exactly
Even
right.
if it's just like the way that I put my toothbrush away.
Yep.
It's like, I don't even know if I want to say, it's more like habits and stuff, but still there are reasons behind all of it, So anyways, it's pretty interesting. And then we kind of like pass that along to our kids, right? Like I tell my kids to put their toothbrush a certain way. I'm like, no, if you do that, then blah, blah, blah. And so it's just super interesting. And this topic is super interesting, and for us, like, I don't remember if I said this because I think we got kind of sidetracked, but I would sort of create reasons why 13 wasn't like unlucky for me. And so the way that I would do that, whether that's if I had to pull into a gas station and pump 13 was the only one open, or if I ended up not being able to be number 4 in whatever sport I was trying to play, and I had, they handed me a 13 or, 13th room in a hotel, whatever it is, I would say, well, 1 + 3 is 4, so I'm all
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So I'd always kind of like create those kind of things in my mind just to ease it.
Yeah. Well, do you got anything else?
No, man. I think again, if you haven't checked us out on Instagram, do so. We always kind of go a little bit deeper in terms of posting stuff that we call artifacts about each episode. It's also a really good place to kind of interact with us right now. It's also the only place that you can sign up for our what we're going to call That Would Be Rad Dispatch, which is essentially our newsletter. Our newsletter dedicated to kind of bringing any of the upcoming news and announcements, including merchandise or anything sort of exclusive like that. That's going to be the first place in the dispatch is where we're going to release that information because that is in the horizon.
Yeah.
A fresh new website and merchandise
And we've had a lot of you guys and gals ask about T-shirts and stickers and buttons and stuff, and all of those, they're all coming.
And again, like we say every week, we really appreciate every single person for listening, and obviously it would mean the world to us if you told your friends to give us a listen, see what they think.
Yeah, please do. Also leave 5-star reviews on iTunes and pass it along. We thank you, we love you, and until next time,
Be rad.
That's the way it goes. The way it You're my favorite song on the radio that's only playing sad songs. Well, even sad songs have to come to an end. And you always said our future would be a parade of flowers, but I guess it died even before it began. And that's the way it goes. black clouds in a time where I just needed some sunshine. You were already dead, for you became a ghost. You always said